Have you ever reached a point where everything around you feels perfect, yet there's a nagging sensation of emptiness inside? This narrative explores the inner turmoil that often accompanies our quest for happiness and fulfillment. It looks into the journey of a person who, despite achieving everything traditionally associated with success, starts to question the very fabric of their existence and the elusive nature of contentment. Life often presents us with a picture-perfect scenario: career success, social relationships, and personal achievements. Yet, underneath this glossy exterior, many individuals feel a profound emptiness, a void that no amount of outward success seems to fill. Our narrative begins at this juncture, where the external triumphs of life no longer translate into internal peace. The sense of having reached several milestones in life without feeling fulfilled creates a puzzling scenario. It's a common tableau: the high-flying job, the bustling social life. The checkboxes of societal success are all marked. Yet, there's an unmistakable feeling of standing at a crossroads, peering into a haze of confusion about what truly makes life worth living. As days turn into weeks, the initial complacency that characterized our protagonist's life starts to wane. Subtle at first, the discomfort grows, manifesting as restlessness, and a growing realization that perhaps the path to genuine happiness doesn't lie in conventional achievements. This discomfort is not sudden, but a slow realization, like the slow rise of the sun at dawn, gently illuminating the gaps in their perceived happiness. Questions begin to surface, simple yet profound. Is this all there is to life? Can true satisfaction be found in the next promotion, the next big purchase, or the next accolade? Or is there something deeper, more fundamentally fulfilling that has been overlooked in the race to the top? As life would have it, just as these questions start to take hold, an event occurs that catalyzes a shift. It is not something extraordinary, but rather an occurrence as mundane as any that gains significance only in the light of our protagonist's growing inner turmoil. Perhaps it's the loss of a seemingly important contract at work, or an unexpected distancing from a close friend. Whatever the case, it serves as a mirror, reflecting back the fragility and transient nature of the protagonist's sources of pride and joy. This event does not just add to the confusion, it multiplies it, forcing a confrontation with the deeper existential queries that have been simmering beneath the surface. It marks a transition from denial, a refusal to acknowledge the emptiness, to an admission that perhaps what has been chased so ardently is not a panacea for the inner void after all. The days that follow are reflective. The normalcy of life continues. Meetings are attended, social gatherings are smiled through, but internally, there is a seismic shift. The routines that once formed the bedrock of daily existence now seem superficial, the interactions perfunctory. This is the tipping point, the moment where the external achievements begin to lose their luster in the light of the protagonist's quest for something more profound than trophies and titles. The personal crisis acts as a crucible, distilling the protagonist's understanding of happiness. The realizations are gradual but unsettling. Happiness, they start to understand, isn't a destination reached by climbing the traditional ladders of success, but perhaps something that requires a deeper, more introspective journey. A journey not outward into the world, but inward into the self. As the protagonist comes to terms with the reality that the previous paths to happiness were illusory, the quest for a more meaningful existence takes shape. This phase is marked not by a dramatic departure from the past, but by subtle shifts in activities and perspectives. The search begins with an inward turn, exploring various avenues that promise a deeper sense of fulfillment. Initially, this search manifests in various experiments with new hobbies and interests. It's a phase of trial and error, where each new activity is approached with a hopeful curiosity. Perhaps it's learning a musical instrument, delving into books on philosophy, or starting a regimen of meditation. Each activity is undertaken with a zeal, fueled by the hope that this could be the key to unlocking the long-sought-after feeling of completeness. But with each new attempt, a pattern emerges. The initial enthusiasm gives way to a familiar sense of dissatisfaction. The guitar collects dust in the corner. The books remain half-read. It seems that no matter the pursuit, the void remains, stubborn and unyielding. The realization dawns that perhaps the problem isn't in the activities themselves, but in the expectation that any one thing can fill the void left by another. This period is a tough teacher, imparting lessons about the fleeting nature of pleasure and the deeper longing for purpose that simple activities cannot satiate. The protagonist learns that while these pursuits bring transient moments of joy, they do not lead to the enduring contentment that was hoped for. The fleeting nature of these satisfactions prompts deeper reflections on the nature of happiness itself. Perhaps it is not something that can be acquired or achieved, but something far more elusive. The repeated cycle of hope and disillusionment begins to take its toll. What started as a vibrant search for meaning gradually transforms into a heavier, more introspective journey. It's during this phase that the protagonist encounters the true depth of the challenge. The descent into a darker view of this quest reflects a crucial turning point, confronting not just the external failures to find happiness, but the internal resonances of these failures. Feelings of doubt and isolation become more pronounced. The social gatherings that were once a source of superficial engagement now seem starkly empty, the conversations echoing the internal void. The protagonist begins to retreat, finding more solace in solitude than in the company of others who seem unaware of the depths of this existential struggle. It is in this solitude that the deeper questions press harder. Why do these pursuits fail to satisfy? What is missing? The more these questions are explored, the more pervasive the darkness seems. This descent is not just a metaphorical journey, but a palpable experience of confronting the limitations of previous beliefs and the pain of unmet desires. It is a necessary purging, an unraveling of former selves that makes space for new growth, though this is not yet apparent. This period of introspection and struggle is essential, for it strips away the illusions that have been meticulously built up over the years. It is painful, yet purifying, leading to a raw, unfiltered look at oneself and one's desires. The descent, though fraught with challenges, prepares the ground for real transformation, clearing away the debris of broken beliefs and superficial pursuits. Emerging from the depths of introspection and solitude, our protagonist begins to encounter new perspectives. It is during one of these quieter moments of reflection that an unexpected conversation with a stranger offers a new way of seeing things. This encounter isn't marked by dramatic revelations, but rather by subtle, profound insights, shared during a simple, everyday interaction, perhaps at a local park or during a community event. The stranger speaks of life's complexities and the pursuit of happiness with a calmness and depth that resonate deeply with our protagonist. This conversation sows the seeds of a new understanding. The idea that happiness might not be something one pursues directly, but rather something that ensues as a byproduct of other life processes, strikes a chord. The stranger discusses living authentically, aligning actions with inner values, and finding peace in acceptance rather than relentless striving. This meeting marks a pivotal point in the narrative. It introduces the protagonist to a new philosophical framework, one that suggests that perhaps the true essence of contentment lies in accepting life's imperfections and finding joy in the journey itself, not just the destination. This insight doesn't immediately resolve the protagonist's struggles, but it does open a new path of exploration, one that focuses on inner alignment and balance. Armed with this new perspective, the protagonist begins to experiment with this philosophy. Small changes are implemented, such as practicing gratitude, focusing on the present moment, and engaging more meaningfully with others without the hidden agenda of seeking personal happiness. These practices start to shift the protagonist's experiences, subtly at first, but with increasing significance. As these new practices deepen, they begin to transform the protagonist's daily life. This transformation is gradual and not without setbacks, but it is profound. The protagonist starts to let go of the heavy burden of expectations, both self-imposed and those perceived from society. This shedding of burdens is not depicted as a moment of epiphany, but as a slow and sometimes painful release of ingrained habits and thought patterns. The focus shifts from seeking happiness as a goal to cultivating a lifestyle that fosters peace and genuine satisfaction. Activities and relationships are now chosen not for their prestige or potential for happiness, but for their harmony with the protagonist's deeper values. This alignment brings a sense of peace that had been elusive when happiness was pursued as a direct goal. During this period, the protagonist begins to see the beauty in ordinary things, appreciating moments and interactions that previously went unnoticed. This new appreciation brings a richness to life that contrasts starkly with the earlier feelings of emptiness. It is through these moments that the protagonist experiences the truth of the stranger's words. Happiness ensues not from direct pursuit, but from living authentically and accepting life's journey with all its imperfections. As the protagonist's new way of living begins to take shape, not all reactions from the surrounding environment are supportive. The transformation, while enriching on a personal level, introduces challenges in social and professional spheres. Friends and colleagues, accustomed to the old ways, react with mixed feelings. Some express puzzlement, others skepticism, and a few might even distance themselves, feeling alienated by the changes they observe. This setback is significant, not because it introduces new struggles, but because it tests the protagonist's commitment to their new path. The criticism and misunderstanding serve as a mirror, reflecting back the societal expectations and norms that once dictated the protagonist's life choices. The difficulty lies not just in going through personal growth, but also in maintaining it in the face of external pressures and doubts. During this period, the protagonist feels the weight of isolation that often accompanies deep personal change. Doubts resurface. Is this path worth the misunderstanding and social alienation? The questions are painful but necessary, as they challenge the protagonist to reaffirm their values and commitment to living authentically. Overcoming the setbacks requires a deepened commitment to the new insights and lifestyle changes that have brought peace. The protagonist learns to accept not only the personal imperfections and the limitations of life, but also the fact that not everyone will understand or support their journey. This acceptance becomes a crucial turning point, reinforcing the internal changes and solidifying the protagonist's resolve. As acceptance deepens, a sense of peace pervades the protagonist's life. This peace comes from the understanding that the quest for happiness is not about achieving a perfect state of being, but about accepting life as it comes, with all its imperfections and uncertainties. The protagonist begins to appreciate the journey itself, with its highs and lows, as the essence of living fully. The lessons learned through the challenges become integral to the protagonist's narrative. They realize that true contentment arises from within and is reflected outward in the acceptance of life's ebb and flow. This realization allows the protagonist to engage with life and relationships more openly and authentically, no longer swayed by the need for external validation. As the protagonist continues to embody the principles of acceptance and authentic living, an unexpected insight begins to crystallize. This revelation does not arrive as a sudden epiphany, but as a gradual understanding illuminated by everyday experiences. The protagonist recognizes that the search for happiness, which initially seemed to require external pursuits and validations, is indeed an internal journey, deeply personal and inherently reflective. This understanding is deepened through interactions where the protagonist shares their journey with others. In teaching, explaining, and merely living according to this new understanding, the protagonist realizes that happiness has always been a more accessible internal state, influenced by external circumstances, but not dependent on them. This realization marks a profound shift in the narrative. Happiness is not something to be found, but to be recognized and cultivated internally. During this phase, the protagonist experiences a greater sense of freedom than ever before. Freed from the shackles of constant searching, there is a significant shift in how daily life is approached. Activities and relationships are now engaged in for their intrinsic value, and less from a place of needing to extract happiness from them. This shift not only enhances personal contentment, but also begins to affect those around the protagonist positively. Armed with new wisdom and a life enriched by genuine experiences of peace and fulfillment, the protagonist is naturally drawn to share these insights more broadly. The focus turns outward, with an emphasis on helping others go through their paths through mentoring, community involvement, and perhaps formal avenues like workshops or writing. The protagonist establishes a community group focused on mindful living, where experiences and strategies for finding internal balance are shared. This community becomes a space for collective growth, where members support each other in exploring the nuances of their journeys toward personal fulfillment. Through these efforts, the protagonist's personal journey comes full circle. What began as a solitary search for happiness has transformed into a communal exchange of wisdom and support. This new beginning is not just a phase in the protagonist's life, but a sustainable continuation of their development, now enriched by the active contribution to the well-being of others. The protagonist's story concludes on a note of hopeful continuance, suggesting that the journey of self-discovery and the pursuit of happiness is an ongoing process, ever evolving and cyclically beneficial. The narrative reaffirms that while happiness can be elusive when pursued as an end goal, it can become a natural part of life when approached through authenticity, acceptance, and community engagement. This story, devoid of specific names and faces, emphasizes universal themes that resonate across different lives and circumstances, illustrating that the search for happiness is both uniquely personal and profoundly universal. The lessons gleaned are not just for the protagonist, but for anyone who partakes in this narrative, inviting listeners to reflect on their paths and perhaps find a new way to approach their search for fulfillment and joy.